So, like many of you, I went to go see the Christopher Nolan movie Odyssey. And I guess while watching the movie, I went through, the stereotypical psychological analysis of what the movie could actually represent, all the symbolisms, the motives, and, how can I apply this movie to self-help? Should I have done that? Probably not. But if you stick with me, I can kind of give you my interpretations on what I really watched. So I didn't read the book. I probably should read or might read the book later, but I'm just not going to do that now. The first lesson that was overly repeated in the movie was this concept of Zeus's law. Now, I've never heard this saying, and maybe this isn't new, or maybe it's made up just so the audience can kind of understand the morality of the situation. But basically, the law is that you're supposed to treat other people the way you would like to be treated. That's the whole moral lesson that the main character tries to spin out during the movie. Now, I low-key felt by the end of the movie that Nolan was doing a good job bringing people, back to religion, and it was kind of like this push. And I don't want to speculate too much because some Greek mythology overlaps with similar themes of Christianity, so I could definitely be reaching. Fundamentally, though, he's still right. The way you treat people isn't calculated by a God in order for you to get good karma. It isn't like God or Santa Claus is watching you do good things and then gives you presents at the end of the year because you're a good little boy, you're a good little girl. The law, not just in the movie, but karma itself, has to do with the way you see yourself. If you believe that you are a good person and then you back up that belief with actions, you start to see your self-concept as someone who is good. And once you fully believe that you are a good person, you may be able to avenge yourself. Essentially, your main point in life is to view yourself as someone who you wish you could be. This concept helps you be happy. And if you just, let's just say, give back to a random person on the street, your body, your mind will start to slowly see yourself as a good person, as someone who does charity. And with all respect, subconsciously, I believe you'll accept more good things for you. You won't self-sabotage as much if you really see yourself as a good person. You'll accept these good people in your life, good situations, and it'll just compound. This doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you'll do a good action and then the next day, you're manifesting whatever you want. It's hard to actively change your self-concept in order for your brain to accept goodness in your life. But it's very important. When you give back, your mind will start to believe that there are more people out there to give to you. And once you receive things which happen by chance, that belief starts to grow. If you're respectful and open-minded to others, you're not supposed to do it necessarily so the other person can be respectful and open-minded to you. You're supposed to do this because this is how you want to treat yourself. By treating other people a specific way, you technically treat yourself that way as well. Next, the Trojan horse. So the movie revolves around Odysseus' regret from tricking the people in Troy. By doing this, in my perspective, his logical mind cannot perceive or forgive him for not treating people with the respect of Zeus's law. To put it simply, he betrayed his self-concept and the law itself. I think this caused him to be paralyzed with regret, like Leo DiCaprio in Inception, or the classic cheater that loses his girl and keeps calling her phone instead of changing his persona. The Trojan horse simply represents deception. He uses this, and in the movie, it seems like he can't really forgive himself because of it. So this is the big question. How are you deceiving yourself? What is your Trojan horse? Is it drugs, sleep, explicit content, gluttony? How are you portraying yourself, and in which ways are you mistaking pleasure for deception? because your mind is always watching you, and your mind is built to stay in a habitual state. If you're doing things constantly, yes, because it feels good, the Athena or the intellectual mind will keep you stuck in that deception, keep you hooked onto that Trojan horse. Another example of this could be the lotus flower that the lady gives Odysseus. Allegedly, when you eat this plant, you forget about your desires. The good ones, the promises you kept to yourself for you to make it out of wherever you are. It's a mental prison. A quote from the movie, or maybe not a complete quote, just what I remember is, your heart was leading. It just took a while for your mind to catch up. What are your desires? What does your heart want that your mind clouds, that your mind won't have because you allow certain pleasures in, you allow certain people in, and you go to certain environments? What is your lotus flower? And, this could really be super simple. It could legitimately be THC. It could be nicotine. It could be some actual drug that, is keeping you stuck in this state of brain fog. But it could also be something that's not as simple, something that you can't really see. Then my next point talks about the prophecy that the black demon knight told the main character about trust. So this black knight killed his daughter, and when he got back after the Trojan War, his wife killed him as revenge. And when he came back to life in this kind of ritual scene to warn the main character, I think it was a good example of this underlining theme of karma. But I also think it was very important that we understand it as trust. Odysseus doesn't just walk in like a champion after, escaping this island. He tests the water. He saves his son, gets good karma, and earns his trust. He tests his wife to see if she still loves him. And I truly believe because he wanted to be a good person and he did the actions behind his morality and he had patience and he tested trust on his journey, he understood that he could finally trust himself. Self-trust, the self-concept theory. And if you don't follow Zeus's law, if you don't treat people the way you want to be treated, you technically can't really see yourself as noble. Now, there's 100 people in power, thousands of people in power who don't treat people the way that they want to be treated. They would not like to live in the conditions that they set for other people. But this law, this concept, karma in itself, it just shows to prove that some people will self-destruct. They don't see themselves as that. And even if you are the type of person to be like, oh, I shouldn't even be a good person because that's not going to get me money, it's not going to get me power, you're missing the point. It's that those things don't matter. If thousands of people depended on you, if you were a celebrity, if you were whatever this type of influencers and people just trusted and depended on you and you weren't a good person or you didn't view yourself as a good person, that's more scrutinizing, that's more harmful than just being a bad person and no one knowing you and having no power and having nothing. I would never want to be that influencer who I don't like myself, so I might have done something and then my entire career I'm getting cancel culture. No, I would much rather be a nobody or have a small kingdom in this movie for this example. I would rather be like that, be kind of to myself, but love myself than to be around a whole bunch of people with money and power and hate myself and not be able to sleep or having to take so many drugs because I'm not treating people the way I want to be treated, and my brain is starting to treat myself that way. And that's the pattern. The second you start to be like mean to somebody, if you're racist, homophobic, if you're sexist, if all those other things, when you're doing that to another person, your brain starts to rewrite the rules for yourself. Your brain starts to treat yourself that way because that's all it knows. That's all it's thinking about. It doesn't know any other pattern because you're not telling it that it could think well, it could think good, And that's how these mental health crises kind of starts. It's when you're constantly seeing negative things over and over and over again. You just start to have bad thoughts, and then you start to have bad thoughts about other people, and you start to try to blame other people. And then that's how these blames are, oh, men don't do this and women don't do this. And I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but it is important because we don't really see how all of us affect all of us. You have to trust yourself. And the best way to trust yourself is your actions. And then your actions create new beliefs. It's not beliefs first and then actions, which we kind of want it to be. And in some cases, we can, do the affirmations and start to try to believe something important. Like we can try to believe, oh, I'm going to be this next big YouTuber and whatever. But the belief doesn't really solidify until there's action behind it. It's just kind of like a doormat seed until you get watered, until you get sunlight. So if you want to be a specific person, it's important, yes, to treat yourself with respect, but it's also important to uphold that same self-respect onto other people.